Hello everyone, and welcome back to podcast Black and White. Today, we have a truly fascinating topic to explore: China's artificial sun project, a groundbreaking advancement in nuclear fusion technology. This development has the potential to revolutionize how we generate clean and nearly limitless energy. To help us dive deeper into this topic, we're thrilled to have a very special guest joining us today, Sophie, a leading expert in fusion energy. Sophie has 14 years of experience, notable achievements related to fusion energy. She's here to shed light on the science behind fusion energy, the challenges involved, and what projects like China's artificial sun could mean for our energy future. Sophie, welcome to the show. It's such an honor to have you with us.
It's pretty amazing when you think about it. The sun, this giant fiery ball of gas in the sky, provides all the energy that makes life possible here on Earth.
It's incredible, isn't it? The sheer power of it.
And for centuries, humans have been trying to harness that power to find ways to use it to meet our growing energy needs.
Well, we've made some progress with solar power, of course.
True, but that's just capturing a tiny fraction of the sun's energy that reaches us. What if we could recreate the process that powers the sun right here on Earth?
You're talking about nuclear fusion.
That's right. And that's what we're diving into today. This report all about China's artificial sun project and their experimental advanced superconducting Tokamak, or EAST reactor.
EAST, yes. Quite an ambitious undertaking.
So before we get into the specifics of the EAST reactor, can you give us a quick breakdown of what nuclear fusion actually is? I think a lot of people get it confused with nuclear fission, which is what powers current nuclear power plants.
Yeah, it's an important distinction. Fission is splitting atoms apart to release energy, like breaking a cookie in half.
Okay, and that's what's happening in those big cooling towers we see at nuclear power plants.
Right. And you get those radioactive byproducts, the crumbs you're left with after splitting the atom. Fusion, on the other hand, is about combining or fusing atoms together, specifically hydrogen atoms to form helium.
And that releases even more energy than fission.
Way more. It's the same process that happens at the sun's core, the source of all that incredible power.
I see. So they call it an artificial sun because it mimics the way the sun produces energy.
Exactly. But there's a catch, of course.
Oh, I bet there is. I mean, the sun has immense gravity holding everything together. How do we recreate those conditions here on Earth?
Well, we can't exactly replicate the sun's gravity, unfortunately, so we use incredibly powerful magnets to contain something even hotter than the sun's core. Plasma.
Plasma. Now that sounds like something straight out of Star Trek.
Haha. Well, it's not that far-fetched. Imagine a gas that's been heated to such extreme temperatures that the atoms start losing their electrons. So you have this swirling soup of charged particles that's plasma, and it's essential for fusion reactions to occur.
Okay, so we're talking about creating a substance that's hotter than the sun and then trying to contain it. Sounds like a recipe for disaster.
It's definitely not easy. That's where the EAST reactor comes in, and why those powerful magnets are so crucial. They create an invisible bottle, a magnetic field, to hold the plasma in place.
I'm starting to grasp the concept, but we're still talking about incredible temperatures and these powerful magnets. How does that work in practice? What makes the EAST reactor so special?
Well, the superconducting part of its name is key. The magnets in EAST are made from materials that, when cooled to extremely low temperatures, can conduct electricity with zero resistance.
Zero resistance.
Yeah, so they can create these insanely strong magnetic fields without losing energy to heat, which is essential when you're dealing with something hotter than the sun.
Okay, superconductivity makes sense, but I'm still curious, how hot does it actually have to get for fusion to happen? Like, what kind of numbers are we talking about?
Buckle up, because they're pretty mind-blowing. In 2021, the EAST reactor achieved a plasma temperature of 120 million degrees Celsius.
120 million degrees. That's like 8 times hotter than the sun's core.
Exactly. And they managed to hold that temperature for 101 seconds.
Wow. So why is it so important to hold those temperatures for that long?
Because it's not just about reaching the temperature, it's about sustaining it long enough for fusion reactions to happen efficiently. The longer we can maintain those conditions, the closer we get to generating more energy out of the fusion process than we put in.
That's the ultimate goal, right?
Yeah.
Getting more energy out than we put in. That's what would make fusion power commercially viable.
Absolutely. And those 101 seconds later, they even hit 17 minutes at 70 million degrees, were huge milestones. They showed that it's possible.
Incredible. It sounds like we're on the verge of something truly revolutionary. But I'm guessing it's not all smooth sailing, right? What are some of the major hurdles that scientists are still facing with this technology?
Well, you're right. There are still challenges. A big one is achieving that net energy gain we talked about. Right now, we're still putting more energy in than we're getting out.
So it's like we're investing $2 and only getting one back. Not a great return on investment.
Not yet, at least. But we're making progress. There's also the issue of materials. We need materials that can withstand those insane temperatures and radiation levels inside the reactor. Most things would just melt or degrade.
Yeah, I can imagine. Designing a container for something 8 times hotter than the sun can't be easy. But even with all these challenges, this project sounds incredibly ambitious and probably very expensive. How much are we talking about here?
Well, that's the surprising part. This report states that the entire East project cost about $37 million US.
Wait, are you serious? That seems incredibly cheap, especially compared to the kind of money we spend on other big science projects.
It does raise some eyebrows, doesn't it? Especially considering that similar reactors in other countries have cost 15 to 20 times that amount.
Wow, that's a huge difference. What are they doing differently in China to keep the cost so low?
It's hard to say for sure without more information. Lower labor costs in China might be a factor, or perhaps they've found innovative ways to streamline construction and material sourcing. Whatever the reason, it's definitely making people in the international fusion community take notice.
It certainly makes you wonder why similar projects elsewhere have been so much more expensive. This cost difference could really change the game when it comes to making fusion power a global reality.
It very well could. And it highlights another important point. This isn't just a Chinese project. It's part of a much larger international effort to achieve commercial fusion power.
We're talking about ITER, right? The International Thermonuclear Experimental Reactor.
Exactly. It's a massive collaboration involving dozens of countries, including the US, Russia, India, Japan, the EU, and of course China. They're all pooling their resources and expertise to build the world's largest and most advanced fusion reactor.
It's like a global scientific dream team coming together to solve one of humanity's biggest challenges. It's pretty inspiring, actually.
It really is, and it underscores just how important this research is. The potential benefits of fusion energy are simply too great to ignore.
Okay, let's talk about those benefits then. What kind of impact could fusion energy have on the world if we're able to overcome these challenges and make it a reality?
Well, imagine a world where every country has access to clean, safe, and virtually limitless energy.
Sounds like a utopia. No more dependence on fossil fuels. No more greenhouse gas emissions contributing to climate change.
Exactly. It's a bold vision, but it's one that's worth striving for.
I completely agree. But let's be realistic. Can we really expect fusion energy to solve all our energy and environmental problems?
It's important to be realistic, you're right. Fusion is not a magic bullet, and it won't solve everything overnight. Even if we achieve commercially viable fusion energy, we'll still need to make significant changes to our energy infrastructure and consumption habits.
So it's not a cure-all, but it could be a powerful tool in our efforts to build a more sustainable future.
Precisely.
Well, I'm certainly intrigued. Okay, so we've talked about the science behind fusion, the impressive progress China's East Reactor has made, and the collaborative nature of ITER. But let's bring it back to you, our listener, for a moment. Can you imagine a world powered by fusion? What would that mean for your daily life?
It's an interesting thought experiment, isn't it? Think about never having to worry about rising gas prices or rolling blackouts. Imagine a world where the air is cleaner and the threat of climate change is significantly reduced.
It's a future that many of us would welcome with open arms. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. We're still in the early stages of this journey.
That's true, but the progress we've made in recent years is definitely cause for optimism.
Okay, before we move on, I want to dig a little deeper into those benefits you mentioned. You talked about energy security, environmental benefits, and safety advantages over traditional nuclear power. Let's start with energy security. What would that look like in a world powered by fusion?
It would be a whole different world, really. Countries wouldn't be so dependent on those volatile global markets for fossil fuels.
Yeah, you're right. No more scrambling for oil or worrying about those pipelines getting shut down.
Exactly. Imagine nations, especially developing countries, being able to produce their own clean energy.
It would level the playing field, wouldn't it? Give them a chance to control their own energy destinies.
Absolutely. They wouldn't be reliant on imports anymore and could even become energy exporters themselves.
That's a pretty big shift in the balance of power. But how would fusion compare to those other clean energy sources, like solar and wind? I mean, those are making some headway already, aren't they?
They definitely are. We need to keep investing in those technologies too. They're a crucial part of the transition.
Sure. But what makes fusion different? What's the advantage?
Well, one of the big challenges with solar and wind is that they're intermittent. They rely on the weather.
Oh, yeah. The sun's not always shining and the wind's not always blowing. That's a big problem.
It is. Fusion, on the other hand, could provide a steady baseload power source. It wouldn't matter if it was day or night, rain or shine. Always there.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. But what about fission-based nuclear power, the kind we have now? Doesn't that also provide a reliable baseload of energy?
Yeah, it does. But there are concerns about fission.
Oh, right. Like meltdowns, radioactive waste. Scary stuff.
It's definitely something to consider. And then there's the potential for misuse of nuclear materials and weapons. Always a risk. Fusion, by its very nature, is a lot safer. The waste products are far less radioactive, and the risk of a meltdown is much lower.
So fusion seems to have a pretty clear advantage when it comes to safety. But we've also talked about some pretty big challenges. The high costs, the technical hurdles. How do we balance those against the potential benefits?
It's a tough question. It all comes down to a risk-benefit analysis, doesn't it? Any new technology has risks. But the potential rewards with fusion are so massive. I mean, we could potentially solve both our energy and climate crises. It's an investment worth making, don't you think?
Yeah, I see your point. It's a calculated risk, but with potentially world-changing consequences. But even if we assume those risks are manageable, what of the timeline? I know the report mentioned aiming for commercial fusion reactors by mid-century. How realistic is that?
Mid-century is definitely ambitious. I won't sugarcoat it, but it's not impossible. Like, scientific breakthroughs happen all the time, sometimes when you least expect it.
Yeah, you never know what brilliant mind is going to crack the code.
Right. And with enough investment, with global collaboration, I think we could see some major progress in the coming decades.
Seeking a collaboration, this report really emphasizes the international nature of this project. It's not just China working on this. It's a global team effort through ITER. Can you remind us why that collaboration is so crucial?
Well, for one thing, it allows us to pool our resources and expertise. Fusion research is complex and expensive, so sharing the burden is key. No single country can do it alone.
Makes sense. Put all the best minds together, right?
Exactly. And it also fosters the spirit of cooperation, a shared purpose. It shows that even in a world that's often divided, we can come together on something like this. It gives me hope.
Me too. It's a pretty powerful reminder that we're all in this together. This brings us back to the EAST project and those impressive temperature milestones they've achieved. 120 million degrees Celsius for over a minute, and then 70 million degrees for a whopping 17 minutes. It's incredible. Why are those achievements so significant in the grand scheme of fusion research? What do they tell us?
Well, they show that creating and sustaining these extreme temperatures is possible. It was just theoretical for so long, but now we're actually doing it.
Right. It's one thing to talk about it on paper. It's another to actually make it happen.
Exactly. And remember, one of the biggest challenges in fusion is containment. Keeping that superheated plasma stable and contained long enough for fusion to actually occur and release energy. These extended durations are a sign that we're getting better at controlling this incredibly powerful and volatile process.
It's like taming a wild beast.
In a way, yeah.
So what's next for the EAST project? What are the next steps they need to take to get closer to that goal of commercial fusion power?
Well, they need to address that energy output challenge we talked about. They're still putting more energy in than they're getting out, so that needs to change.
Got to find a way to tip the scales in the other direction.
Exactly. Yeah. They also need to keep pushing the boundaries of plasma confinement, try to hold those temperatures for even longer. And then there's the materials challenge. Always working on that, developing materials that can withstand the extreme conditions inside the reactor.
It's like a constant race against the forces of nature, isn't it?
In some ways, yes. It takes a lot of ingenuity and perseverance. It's really a testament to human ambition.
I agree, pushing the boundaries of what's possible. But it's not just about the energy, right? It's about the spin-off technologies, the advancements in other fields that come along with it. Can you give us some examples of that?
Absolutely. One area is materials science. To build these reactors, you need materials that can withstand incredible temperatures, intense radiation, extreme pressures.
Yeah.
That kind of research spills over into other fields.
Oh, I see. So the quest for fusion leads to the development of new materials that could be used in all sorts of applications.
Exactly. Think about aerospace engineering, medical implants, even consumer products.
Yeah.
The possibilities are endless.
That's fascinating. So it's not just about energy, it's about pushing the boundaries of material science in general.
Right. Another area where we could see major advancements is in plasma physics.
Plasma physics.
Yeah, remember, plasma is that superheated state of matter, the key ingredient for fusion. But it has applications in a bunch of other fields too, from semiconductor manufacturing to medical treatments.
Wow, I had no idea. So studying plasma in the context of fusion research could lead to breakthroughs in all these other areas.
Exactly. It's like this ripple effect of innovation, all stemming from the pursuit of fusion energy.
It's amazing how interconnected it all is. What other areas might be impacted by fusion research?
Well, there's the whole realm of computing and data analysis. Fusion research requires incredibly complex simulations and modeling.
Yeah, to design and operate a fusion reactor, you need some serious computing power.
Right, so they're pushing the boundaries of supercomputing and artificial intelligence, and those advancements can be applied to other fields too, of course.
So the quest for fusion could lead to more powerful computers and more sophisticated algorithms that we can use to solve all sorts of problems. Pretty cool.
Very cool. It's like fusion research is this catalyst for scientific and technological advancement across the board. Who knows what other breakthroughs we might stumble upon.
You know, speaking of stumbling upon breakthroughs, the report makes that very clear. This project is just one piece of a much larger puzzle.
That brings us back to ITER, that massive international collaboration we talked about earlier.
Right, ITER, the International Thermonuclear Experimental Reactor. Can you remind us what this project is all about and why it's so important?
ITER is a collaboration between 35 nations, all coming together to build the world's largest and most advanced fusion reactor. It's basically a giant science experiment, a huge laboratory to prove that fusion power is actually feasible.
So it's like the ultimate fusion test, a global team up to see if we can actually make this work on a large scale.
That's a great way to put it. And the scale of this thing is mind-blowing. We're talking 23,000 tons. That's 3 times heavier than the Eiffel Tower.
Wow, that's massive. So what are they hoping to achieve with ITER? What are their main goals?
Well, the big one is to achieve a 10-fold return on energy. They want to get 10 times more energy out of the fusion reaction than they put in.
So they're aiming to prove that fusion can actually produce more energy than it consumes. That's a huge step towards making it a viable energy source.
Exactly. They also want to demonstrate the ability to sustain a fusion reaction for long periods, ideally up to an hour at a time.
That would be a major breakthrough. So where does the project stand right now? Are they close to achieving these goals?
Well, ITER has been in development for decades, and it's been a long road with many challenges. But construction of the reactor is well underway in southern France.
So they're actually building it.
Oh, yeah, it's happening. They've made a lot of progress recently, and they're hoping to achieve first plasma within the next few years.
First plasma, what does that mean?
It's the first time they'll actually heat up the plasma inside the reactor. Kind of a big deal.
It sounds like a major milestone.
Yeah.
So it seems like we're getting closer to seeing the results of this massive international effort.
We are, and it's going to be fascinating to see what we learn from ITER and how those lessons will pave the way for the future of fusion energy.
I'm excited to see what happens. You know, hearing you talk about ITER and the global collaboration behind it, it makes me think about the potential impact of fusion energy on the world stage. Could this technology actually help to reduce global tensions? Maybe even lead to a more cooperative and peaceful world?
It's a fascinating question, and I think it's something a lot of people are thinking about. On the one hand, fusion has the potential to eliminate a lot of the resource conflicts that we see around the world.
Yeah, I could see that. Those conflicts over oil and gas, the competition for scarce resources, it creates a lot of tension.
Absolutely. But imagine a world where every nation can generate its own clean and abundant energy. Suddenly those resources aren't so scarce anymore, and the competition becomes less fierce.
That would definitely change the game, wouldn't it?
It would. And on top of that, the very nature of fusion research fosters collaboration. Look at ITER, scientists and engineers from all over the world working together towards a common goal. They're transcending political and ideological differences to make this happen.
It's a powerful example of what's possible when we set aside our differences and focus on what unites us.
I agree. And who knows, maybe the pursuit of fusion energy will ultimately lead to a more peaceful and sustainable future for all of humanity. It's a nice thought, isn't it?
It really is. Gives me hope. Okay, so we've talked about the potential for fusion to change the world, to reshape geopolitics, to revolutionize our daily lives. But let's zoom in a bit. What about the impact on scientific research? How might fusion energy open up new avenues of discovery in other fields?
Well, we've already touched on a few areas where fusion research is driving innovation. Material science, plasma physics, computing.
Right, right. It's amazing to think that the quest for fusion could have such a broad impact, sparking new discoveries in all those different areas. But let's not forget the big picture here, that ultimate goal of making fusion power a reality. This report mentioned mid-century as a target for commercial fusion reactors. That seems pretty ambitious given everything we've been talking about. What would it actually take to make that happen?
Ambitious is an understatement, I'd say. It's a huge challenge. But I think it comes down to a few key things. First, we need sustained investment, and I mean serious investment, from both governments and private industry. This has to be a long-term commitment.
So it's not just about throwing a bunch of money at it right now. It's about making sure that funding continues for years to come.
Exactly. Fusion isn't a quick fix. It's a long-term investment in our future.
I see. So funding is crucial, but what else needs to happen?
Collaboration. We need to keep breaking down those barriers between nations, share our knowledge, work together. ITER is a great example of that, but we need more of it.
It really highlights the fact that some problems are just too big for any one country to solve on their own. We need to pool our resources, our brain power, and work together as a global community.
Couldn't agree more. But even with the money and the collaboration, we'll still need those brilliant minds, those innovators to figure this out.
Yeah, those are the folks who are going to make those breakthroughs, find those creative solutions. How do we encourage that kind of innovation in the field of fusion research? What needs to happen?
I think we need to create an environment where researchers aren't afraid to take risks. Think outside the box, Challenge those old assumptions.
It's about fostering that spirit of exploration, that willingness to try new things, even if they fail sometimes.
Exactly. We learn from our failures just as much as our successes.
Yeah.
And we need to make sure the public understands that.
That's a good point. It's not just about the scientists in the labs. It's about getting the public on board, making sure they understand the potential of fusion.
We need to build excitement around this, create a sense of wonder. Fusion has the power to change the world, and we need everyone to be a part of that journey.
It's about inspiring the next generation of scientists and engineers, the folks who are going to carry the torch forward. And it's about making sure the public is informed and engaged in the conversation about the future of energy.
Absolutely. Fusion research isn't just happening in a vacuum. It's a societal endeavor. It's going to impact all of us.
Well, as we wrap up this deep dive, I have to say, I'm just awestruck by the scale of this project. We're talking about recreating the power of the sun here on Earth, something that would have been unimaginable a few decades ago.
I know. It's pretty mind-blowing. It's a reminder of what we're capable of when we set our minds to something.
And it's not just about us. It's about future generations. A world where everyone has access to clean energy. A world where we've solved the climate crisis. That's the legacy we want to leave behind, isn't it?
That's the dream. And despite all the challenges, it feels like we're getting closer. I'm optimistic, I have to say.
Me too. It's been a fascinating exploration, and I hope our listeners have come away with that same sense of optimism, a sense of wonder about the future. It's a reminder that even in the face of these huge challenges, there's always hope. There's always the possibility of a brighter tomorrow.
I couldn't have said it better myself. Thanks for having me.
A big thank you to you for sharing your expertise with us. And to all our listeners, thanks for joining us on this incredible journey into the world of fusion energy. Until next time, keep those minds curious.
Hey, hold on before leaving. I want you to listen a weird and witty conversation I recently gone through about artificial sun project.
Yeah, right.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back. We like to dig into the weird side of the news on this show.
That's right.
And today we're going deep on China and their quest for a working artificial sun.
That's right.
We found some really interesting sources talking about this.
Yeah.
But one in particular caught our eye because it took all this serious stuff like,
Right.
clean energy and sustainability.
The future of the planet.
Yeah, and the future of the planet, exactly. And they kind of flipped it on its head and looked at some of the more fun what-if scenarios.
Right, the unintended consequences.
Exactly. So that's what we're going to be doing today.
That sounds great.
Yeah, should be fun.
Yeah.
So when we say artificial sun, I think everybody knows. But just so we're all on the same page,
Yeah.
we're talking about nuclear fusion.
Right.
So basically harnessing the power of smashing atoms together to create energy.
Which is what happens in the sun.
Exactly the same thing that happens in the sun. Just,
Millions of miles away.
millions of miles away. We're trying to do it,
I get it here on Earth.
right here in a lab,
Mm-hmm.
which is pretty crazy when you think about it.
It is, yeah.
So the source that we found had this really cool list of funny effects.
Yeah.
Like if this actually happened.
Right, like what would the side effects be of having another sun, basically?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And some of them are pretty out there. Like they talked about roosters.
Yeah.
Suddenly crowing at 3 a.m. because their internal clocks are all messed up by this artificial sun.
Yeah. That's a pretty funny visual.
Oh, yeah. I can just imagine, like, farmers all over the world.
Right, just mass chaos.
Just complete chaos. And, the early bird special at the diner is now at, like...
At midnight.
Yeah, exactly.
right.
Middle of the night. But I do want to say,
Yeah.
we're talking about the funny side of things.
Sure.
But there is some actual science behind this because,
Yeah,
roosters are affected by light.
they are.
So, it's not completely out there to think that this could have some kind of an effect on their sleep cycles.
Yeah, and it brings up the point that artificial light in general has an effect on a lot of animals.
Oh, absolutely.
Not just roosters.
Yeah, and especially humans.
Yeah.
There's tons of research about how artificial light from our phones and screens
Right.
is messing with our sleep cycles and our hormone production.
Yeah. And I was reading actually that some scientists think that too much exposure to artificial light at night might even be linked to some mental health issues.
Wow.
So, something to think about.
Yeah, definitely something to keep in mind. That's pretty serious stuff.
It is.
All right, well, moving on from, potential rooster revolutions.
Right.
Another one of these funny effects that they mentioned was global tan competitions.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
So, like, imagine, 24/7 sunshine on demand.
Right.
Getting a tan becomes a whole new ball game.
Right. It's not about like laying out in the sun anymore. It's about how much artificial sun can you handle.
Yeah, exactly. It's like an endurance test. Like, who can stay under the artificial sun the longest and get the deepest tan?
Yeah, it'd be like those hot dog eating contests.
Totally. Yeah, but for tanning. And you know what else I was thinking?
What's that?
This could totally change our ideas of beauty,
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Like, we already see that a little bit with tanning beds and stuff.
Right. People want that like bronzed look.
Yeah, but this would take it to a whole other level.
Right. Like a whole new meaning to the word sun-kissed.
Exactly. Yeah, and like, what if fusion glow becomes like a thing?
Fusion glow. I like that.
Yeah, like, you got your influencers on Instagram.
Totally. They'd be like sponsored by the artificial sun companies.
Exactly. It's just wild to think about how this technology could really,
It's like science fiction coming to life.
Yeah, exactly. So this next one is where it gets really interesting.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
What if China says, hey, we've got this technology.
Right.
We're going to patent it, and we're going to sell sunshine like it's a utility.
Like a utility, like electricity or water.
Yeah. Exactly. You want to have midnight barbecue.
Right.
No problem. Just sign up for the premium sunshine package.
Yeah.
And boom.
You got a spotlight of artificial sun right in your backyard.
I mean, that's amazing.
That would be amazing, but it also makes you think about the logistics of it all.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Like, how would you even transmit that much energy
Right.
over
Let's
long distance?
store it.
And store it, exactly. We'd need some serious breakthroughs in things like superconducting materials and energy storage to make that happen.
Yeah, so maybe no midnight barbecues just yet.
Yeah, not quite yet.
But you can't deny the potential impact this could have on global energy.
Oh, absolutely. It's huge.
Like, imagine countries that rely on importing fossil fuels.
Right.
They could become totally energy independent.
Yeah, it could shift the balance of power completely.
Yeah, new economic powers could emerge. It's mind-blowing.
It really is. It's like rewriting the rules of the game.
So we've talked about, roosters and tans and global energy shifts.
Yeah, a lot to unpack.
But what about the sun itself?
What about it?
What if the real sun gets jealous?
Jealous.
Yeah, like, what if it starts acting up, throws some solar flares our way?
Like a cosmic temper tantrum.
Exactly. Like, hey, puny humans, you think you can replace me?
That's a funny thought.
It's like we're messing with the natural order of things.
Right, like who are we to create our own sun?
Exactly.
But I mean, from a scientific standpoint,
Yeah.
it's not very likely that the sun would actually get jealous or, start attacking us with solar flares.
Right.
But it's an interesting thought experiment.
It is.
It makes you think about our relationship with nature.
Yeah, and how we often see ourselves as separate from it.
Right, when in reality, we're very much a part of it.
All right, well, let's get back to this list of funny effects because there's a few more that I want to get your take on.
Okay, shoot.
So this one's a bit of a head scratcher.
Okay.
Time zone chaos.
Time zone chaos.
Yeah, like imagine everyone setting their own personalized sunrise and sunset times,
Oh, wow.
right? Like you want to wake up with the artificial sun at 10 a.m.
Right,
Go for it. Your neighbor wants to have their sunset at 2 a.m.
right.
Fine, no problem.
It'd be total anarchist.
Total anarchy. And just think about the implications for like global communication,
Oh, my God.
right? Like when do you schedule a meeting?
Right, is it 3 p.m. your time or 3 p.m. my time?
Exactly. And travel?
Yeah, forget about jet lag.
Forget about jet lag. This is like a whole new level of time
horrendous.
confusion.
It's like time zones on steroids.
Okay, this next one I think is right up your alley.
Okay, lay it on me.
Supervillain potential.
Yes, of
Okay, come on, you've got this glowing artificial sun reactor.
It's like the perfect supervillain lair centerpiece.
Right, it's like something straight out of a comic book.
Oh, totally. And, you know, it wouldn't surprise me if this whole artificial sun thing sparked a whole new wave of supervillain stories.
Right,
Like you've got the classic control the world's energy plot.
right.
But now it's control the artificial sun even more powerful.
Yeah, even more powerful. And just the visuals alone.
Oh, yeah, it'd be epic.
Okay, last one from the list, and it's a doozy.
Okay, hit me with it.
Extreme barbecue culture.
Extreme barbecue culture.
Imagine cooking everything under a nuclear fusion sunbeam.
No, that's what I call grilling with power.
Right. It would take barbecue to a whole new level.
Right, like forget about charcoal and propane.
Yeah, this is like fusion-powered grilling.
I can see it now. Gourmet fusion grilled steaks.
Fusion smoked ribs.
Fusion seared veggies.
Possibilities are endless.
Endless and maybe a little bit terrifying.
Yeah, I mean, that's a lot of power.
It is, but you know, it's a good reminder that innovation can lead to some pretty unexpected outcomes,
That's true.
even in something as everyday as cooking.
So there you have it. Deep divers. The funny side of China's artificial sun.
A lot to think about.
What stood out to you?
Yeah.
What other funny effects can you come up with? Let us know in the comments because we'd love to hear your thoughts.
And remember, this is all just a bit of fun.
Right?
The potential of nuclear fusion is very real,
It is.
and it could have a huge impact on our world.
So as you go about your day, here's a final thought for you.
Okay.
If you could control the artificial sun, what would you do with it?
Ooh, that's a good one.
No wrong answers.
Use your imagination.
Exactly. Until next time, keep thinking, keep exploring, and we'll catch you on our next deep dive.
See you then.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.